jioni. Habari za jioni. Na mke wako wapi shemeji? Ati ametoka kwenda kwa jirani. Kwa sababu akisema ati alienda kazi usiku, anakuuliza, wewe ni mume gani unalala kwa nyumba na bibi anaenda kazi usiku? Si tunaelewana? Sasa lazima ameenda tu kuomba chumvi kwa jirani. Tunaelewana? So huyu jamaa mawazo yake yote ni huko nyumbani watasema nini. So hata ingawa anakaa hapa kwenye mawanda makubwa, lakini nyumbani kwake analala wapi? Huko kwao tu. So and then we are struggling with this diaspora in the dilemma. The dilemma in the diaspora. Because our practices don't change overnight. There is this confusion here. Where does our lifestyle fit in this present situation? And how do we negotiate these roles here? Whose culture will be discarded and whose culture will be upheld? What about the beliefs and views that we had? What about when I feel that my own identity is challenged? Kwa sababu nyumbani, I was the provider and the head of the house. Hapa mke wako ndio wa kwanza kupata kazi, wewe ndio unasalia nyumbani. Na hiyo diaper hauja change ta siku moja. Sasa unashangaa bwana, sasa hapa wakipiga simu ati mimi sipo. Mke wangu ndio hayupo, mimi ndio nakaa na watoto. Sasa hii maisha ni magumu. So instead now unaanza kushughulika. Because now what do I do? Because kumbuka kule nyumbani the community gave you what? Belongingness. What was the other one? Purpose, transcendence, and then stories to live by. Unafika hapa, you begin to wonder who you are anymore. Kwa sababu kwanza, you're not the provider. Ile gari ya serikali ulikuwa na rear left, hiyo ilienda. Hapa, if you're lucky, ni kwa factory ama gas station. Sasa, hiyo mambo yote hiyo, ati una shamba boy, au maid, na nini, hiyo yote haimo. You are supposed to be a tribe of two. So you are not only a husband, you are also a professional, you are also a friend, you're supposed to be a partner in the kitchen, and a gossiper too. Kwa sababu, hana mwingine wa kuzungumza naye. So what do? Tunaelewana lakini. Kwa sababu, asipokuambia na usipoketi, ataenda kutafuta mwingine ambaye atafanya nini? Atasikiza. So, unaona hii maisha hii ni ngumu. So you begin even to question your own identity. Tena umefika mahali ambapo kumetokea nani? Farao ambaye hajui nani? Joseph. Watoto wamezaliwa, you are the Pharaoh. Wamefika huko wameanza kuelemika, wanakuuliza maswali mengine sijui ati how many states we have in this country. Hauna habari. Alafu wanakuuliza hesabu nyingine unasema ati sijui Bodmas. Hawajui Bodmas ni nini. Wanajua, excuse my Auntie Sally, they have their own. So inafika mahali unaulizwa maswali chungu nzima, mpaka wanajua man, that doesn't know anything. There's a new Pharaoh that doesn't even recognize Joseph. Unajaribu kuzungumza unasema hata hiyo Kiswahili yako manake Kiingereza yako hiyo na accent inaniaibisha sana. Wewe baba, wewe sema kwa kingine wewe nyamaza. So you wake up and you wonder huko nyumbani you are the boss, the Pharaoh back home. Hapa. So what do you do? So that belongingness, you're only a statistic. The purpose, that transcendence, and the stories to live by, you completely don't know who you are anymore. All the traditions you went through and all the things ambao ulijigamba nayo. Unajua Tanzania huko lipo nazungumza bwana wanashangaa. Huyu jamaa bwana anajua Kiingereza ingine. Ajabu bwana, Kiingereza ya Queen wa Ulaya. Kufika hapo wanakuuliza, what did you say again? Mara tatu akiuliza au unanyamaza. I don't know this. So now what you struggle with is to look for this happiness. Looking for happiness and pleasure. In order to, and the more you get obsessed about happiness, the less you get it. and the more anxious you become. So the problem with purpose and happiness is it's this state of comfort and ease, feeling good in the moment. You have all the conveniences. Una air condition kwa nyumba, una gari, unafanya nini. But at the same time, you have no purpose on earth and you wonder who you are. And now you've gotten used to this. Hata ukienda nyumbani huko mashambani, inakuwa ni shida. It's so stressful here, lakini kufika huko tena umezoea conveniences ya hapa, unaanza kuwa restless. Na mibaraka. So, and then you can develop love later on, you know. But what is happening now is this becomes the main thing. Na inafika mahali ambapo mtu anasema, I don't love you anymore. Because it's not like till death do us part, but until what? Because until love dies. And then mimi naenda zangu. And then we said, no, but that's not enough. We also have to add something else. We have to add sexuality. Added to romance. So, and everything that is added, the latest that has been added determines this one. And this one determines this one. So whenever this one is added, then it's like, yeah, it's not only that I love you, but I need to know that it works. That things would be okay. But if we can't have children, or I can't be intimately satisfied or fulfilled, then it doesn't matter whether I love you, but that is the end of it. Tunaelewana lakini? Sasa jambo lingine hata ndio imetendeka zaidi. Identity is added to what? To sexuality. Because now your identity was tied to your biology. Tunaelewana? But it's no longer. It's my orientation and my relationship. Sasa mtoto anakuja, dada, baba, kuanzia kesho sasa mimi si mume tena, mimi ni msichana. So what do you mean? What are you talking about? Open your eyes and look at yourself. No. It doesn't need to be attached anymore to my what? To my biology. I can decide today what I will be. Tunaelewana? So when you came here, you know, your identity and your marriage and your relationship and everything was permanent and pensionable. Tunaelewana? Yeah, nyumbani huko, it's permanent and pensionable. You can take it to the bank. This place, you are a day later with an option to renew. Tunaelewana lakini. And what is true today may not be true tomorrow. So I can wake up and say, by the way, mke wangu, sasa mimi si mume tena. Mimi ni mama kwa hii nyumba tena. It's like, what are you talking about? Tunaelewana lakini. So what do you do? What do you do when your son or your daughter comes home? Part of the struggle is also what has happened before we came. This is one of, we have a lady that has worked in Nairobi, Dr. Maina. Angie helped to be able to change this into an African perspective. So this is what we call the 4 realms of ACEs. This is adverse childhood experiences. And what is happening is there may be a lot of domestic issues that has gone on as trauma in our own early childhood. Emotional and sexual abuse, absentee parenting, divorce, many things that we have dealt with at home. But the opposite of this is what we call PACEs, which is protective and compensatory community experiences. So what is happening is, even though there was a lot of things going on in our early life, yet the community also added those protective factors. But the moment you come to a foreign land, the PACEs fall off. Those protective, compensatory community experiences are withdrawn or left behind. Now, because what was covering it is gone, what you're left with now is what is ingrained in the physical and emotional neglect and things that you went through. Not only that, but even these issues of generational colonial and generational trauma. You're dealing with issues of poverty and lack of employment and collective trauma and collective unemployment and migration and all kinds of things, extrajudicial killings. And you're adding that to what you've gone through in terms of the environmental catastrophes that we've gone through, that we have seen happen. And in addition to that, these cultural, subconscious colonialities and historical grievances and genocide and all kinds of things. And all this in the absence of those protective and compensatory community experiences. Unfortunate things that may have happened, even in sexual abuse to children, especially females, when they were young. And the community had a way of dealing with it, but most of the time it was covered up. Now you come here and they're talking about that abuse and suits and all kinds of things up to childhood. And now you like, for the first time now, what do I do with something that happened 20 years ago? But the whole thing comes back cascading. And you find your marriage begins to struggle and your husband cannot understand. And even husbands may have struggled with things that happened during the war. And there are things that for once begin to be revealed in this country when you deal with things that you had not dealt with. All of a sudden, somebody completely turns into a beast and you wonder what went wrong. And many times, this is what is the process going on from this generational historical trauma, changing the social conditions, even on the local context, because it results sometimes in this adverse childhood experience that disrupts the neurological, neuropsychological development, therefore begins to warp the social, emotional, and cognitive impairment and development of the growing child, leading to these health risks, disease, comorbidities, social problems, and early death. But not only that, but you begin to realize that unless we come together as a people to deal with issues, to understand the sociological origins of what we've gone through, and understand the difference between this background and this background, and what we call the cultural distance between these two, the differences between that, issues that we bring as a strength which becomes an undoing here, or issues that are weaknesses that we came with, that unless we know how to turn it, because I begin to realize that sometimes when we come, women seem to be very quick to adapt to this country. I don't know whether it's because they are home once to come to your home and were adaptable to cross from one culture to another culture. And so when they move here, it's a different, another thing that they have already done before. Yet for us, we're still struggling as men. And I see that especially when women are the first to come to this country and get accustomed to this country, and then the husband comes later on, it becomes a struggle. But I've realized men can be here for 10 years and the wife would come in 10 months, they are able to catch up with him. But the other way around is a real struggle. Unless we are flexible enough to be able to be open-minded, to be able to not define yourself by the roles and the occupations you had, but trying to be able to find meaning and purpose in communication, opening channels of communication. Women communicate most of the time. They talk to the baby, they talk to others, they talk to everything that they are doing. But the question is, what about us, who sometimes are only concerned with one particular thing that you're doing, but we're not relationship oriented? And especially when we don't have the village, we will need to be able to know what are some of the things here that impact us when we reach a cultural contact and there is an extenuating circumstance and a precipitating event, like you've been stopped by a police officer and you realize you're getting a ticket for just driving while black. That's all what it is. And you feel so frustrated that people say, I don't know who you are. When you already knew who you are, but now you're struggling. Your children come home and they tell you that I'm no longer a boy. I don't know who I am anymore. Then you begin to also even struggle because you got fired from a job, and there are tensions in the family, and finances becomes to be an issue, and you feel as if nobody respects me anymore. Children, seem to know what they are looking for, and whatever they ask you anyway, you don't even know. So who am I? And what purpose am I serving here? So you begin to realize that you're beginning to struggle with this. So understanding these moderating factors here, and the situations here, the amount of contact, how long you've been here, what's the amount of life changes you've gone through, all this precipitates either an outcome of mental health and struggles and pain and depression, or an outcome that is more healthier, that is more integrative in understanding both cultures and seeing how to be able to maneuver both of these two cultures. In the book of 2 Kings, chapter 27, one of the things that the king did, I didn't read that, but if you continued in 2 Kings, when they heard the report that the people that had been taken from Babylon to be settled in Samaria were being killed by lions sent by God, the king of Assyria decided to send one of the priests who had been exiled from Israel to go back and teach the values, the rituals, the expectations and the laws of the law of the land, the God of the land. I wonder whether sometimes we come here and we don't have a foundation, we don't have people that can acculturate us into this country to be able to understand what is going on and who we are and how to be flexible and how to be able to stand up for the Lord, yet understand what is going on. How to be able to confront the system when they are coming home questioning how you're raising your children. When the police end up coming to your house with all the sirens blaring because a neighbor has called the police on you. How do you deal with that? When you are stopped on the highway for ever over speeding or running a red light or something like that, how to deal with the police officer? Because the moment you're trying to put your hand in the glove compartment, you see a gun being drawn on you because they think that you're reaching for a gun. Are we together? Because they're dealing with a different population. And since we are black like them, then they think that, yeah, they're always dealing with that issue. So how do you deal with that? But the other question is, these people, after being taught of the Lord, accepted the God of Israel, but added their own idols and their own gods to it. Have we instead taken the God of heaven and added many of the rituals of this country and many of the gods of this country and many of the things that we couldn't be able to do at home? Maybe trying to drink in order to feel better. See, the biggest struggle we have in this country is no longer the fact that you are happy, but I can be happier. Tunaelewana? Lakini mwisho unakuja kuta ni kama mbwa alikuwa anapitia kwenye daraja akiwa na mfupa, anaona mfupa mwingine ni mnono zaidi, tena ina mnofu, inaonekana it's even better than this one. Jamaa anaanguka majini, anapiga mbisi kwenda kutafuta mfupa ambaye yuko wapi? Kwa ule mbwa mwingine. Only to realize that they lost even the bone that they had, looking for a better bone than the one they have. Tunaelewana? Lakini you see, we are here, and what is happening now is we are in a rat race of looking for something better. So when we begin to deal with superlatives of happy, happier, happiest, you have entered into an endless war. Because Many people are beginning to even have affairs within marriages that are happy. But it's because they're looking for something happier. And looking for that happier, you'll never get it. It's almost like a new car. You're buying a new Lamborghini. You know, you are riding in the highest sky for 2 weeks or 3 months. And after that, a better one that they came up with, and it's like, man, I should have waited to get this one. But yet you begin to realize people who have classics. Wonderful car, 1923. But they have been working on it and working on it, and they have a feeling that they are in the highest heaven every single day because they are restoring this classic. And there is a feeling that is different from the new Lamborghini. Yeah, the people can turn on you, but in 2 weeks, you'll be bored with that Lamborghini, but mine, the 1923 Ford Mustang, will still be working. Tunaelewana lakini? Because I've worked on it. And I remember the relationship we have with this car. I'm talking about a husband. I'm talking about a wife. That you can keep restoring them every single day. That anybody out there can turn your neck for a minute, but you realize the relationship you have, and it's like, man, you don't know what it is that I have, you know. I don't have anything to look at. Maybe once, but not twice, because I know what I have. And I know the relationship we have with my wife and my husband. Rebuilding the village in this great metropolis. How do we build a village? Ili tupate kuwalea watoto pamoja. You know, I remember one of the summers when my children were young. You know, I had a family that we co-parented together. During the summer, wakati mwingine, we shipped the kids to their place. And mine began to behave because wako ugenini. Tunaelewana? And the other one also are behaving because kuna wageni wamekuja. So it helps us for almost a few days, 4 or 5. When they begin to start to get used to each other, we ship them back to my house. And then wale wako ugenini, you know, wanaogopa. Na wangu ni kwa sababu tuna nini? Tuna wageni. So we keep doing that. And somehow, you know, when baba ule mwingine anapokuja hapa, you know, I try to talk to my children. Inafika mahali ambapo ni kama unapigia gitaa mbusi. You know, they begin to roll their eyes. Oh, hii tumesikia before. But huyu baba mwingine akija, anasema, mama, hey, baba huyu jamaa ametuambia mambo ajabu. Sema hiyo silisema mwaka jana. But anyway, you know what, so long as somebody else has said, kama umeelewa na kuikubali, nasema huyo ni mtu mzuri sana. Anaweza kutusaidia. And you go to your room and it's like, my goodness, didn't I say this? But you know, they were rolling eyes when you are saying that. But somehow when somebody else confirms it, it kind of sinks. Tunaelewana? And these same ones that are rolling their eyes, when you go to the other side, huko wanakusikiza vizuri sana. And their dad comes in and they, oh my goodness, here he comes again. But somehow, if we build a village, it does help us. For it takes a village to do what? To raise a child. And then restoring relationships. I came across this study. Let me finish with it. This is called the Harvard Study of Human Development. It's, as far as, I'm not sure whether there is any other longer study than this one. They started this study in 1938. They've been doing it for 85 years. They started with 760 people. 700? 7,600, I think. And now we have less than 50 people left in this study. But they have expanded it and included their children and their spouses and all these other things. And as years have gone, they have become even more sophisticated. Because now they're doing MRIs, they're doing CT scans. Some of them have donated their brains and all that for this research. It's the longest research they have done. They are taking people from higher end and from the lowest. There have been 3 presidents in this study and all that. But what is amazing, it's not the health, it's not what you eat, it's not how much you earn, where you live, but the relationships in your life. This is what our study has shown. After 85 years of thorough studies, and they do all kinds of things, all the physicals, everything, brain studies, all kinds of things. The ones that have survived the longest and thrived in life, because they watch them when they are communicating. They do every 2 years, they do questionnaires and all kinds of things. And they observe them and they do all those. It is the relationships that they have. Who is it that you can call 3 o'clock in the morning? Who can stand for you when you've doubted who you are? Who is it that really is there for you? May God help us as we as a people begin to live. These are things I need to talk about, but this is the integrated contextual approach, where as we live together as a village, as we begin to have God in our midst, we will move a lot of these things. This was the earlier one, but this is a double one. We can move more from this detrimental to supportive, from the severe to the mild, from this hyperactive salience to the optimal, from this hyperarousal to emotional regulation, and instead of comorbidity there, longevity of life. Any question up to there? Fikiri wakati wangu umeisha, tamalizia hapo. Do we have a question? Do we have a comment? Basi hebu na tuombe kama hatuna swali. Baba, tunashukuru tena kwa sababu tumekaa miguuni pako. Kuna mambo mengi tumejifunza, lakini Bwana, tunataka ukae kati yetu kama dhabihu na kuhani katika nyumba zetu. Tunanyenyekeza miguuni pako Yesu, kwa sababu tumekuja hata katika nchi hii. Tembea pamoja nasi ili upate kuwa uponyaji kati yetu na tumaini kuu tunapowalea wana na binti wetu. Na Bwana, tutakapokuwa tumekamilisha kazi iliyosalia nchini humu, asubuhi ya milele tusimame pamoja na wale watakatifu watakao kuwa wameshinda. Hebu njoo ili uwe kwetu amani, ili uwe kwetu tumaini, na ndoa zetu zilizobanwa, Bwana, tuomba kwamba uwe pumziko kati yetu, ili tupate kuona uso wako, na katika kuona uso wako Bwana tupate kupona. Maana tunaomba katika Kristo aliye Bwana na mwombezi wetu. Amen. A question?
Sorry, you guys. I really had a question, but my question is this. Just give him a moment to attend. Okay. I'm wondering what we do with the generation that is much younger than us in this country. It's because I've listened to you. Do we just leave everything as it is, so everybody takes their own trajectory, they continue with what they know, what they do, their gender, they determine their own genders? Somebody was telling me these days in some states they don't even write whether it's a female or a male until the kid gets to 18 and assigns himself or herself a gender. This is bad. But do we just leave it to go as it is, or what is it you're telling us?
Thank you.
There's also one other thing.
Okay.
There's one thing I've noticed in many of the American homes. Now, I've been here for a year, but the dining tables are dying out. It's like nobody sits there on the dining table. Nobody is really ready to eat together. Everybody eats. They wash their own plate.
If they can even wash the plate.
So there you are.
Yeah, I think these are some of the things we'll talk about more as we get deeper into this. But these are tough questions to be able to deal with. And that is why I'm setting up the foundation by saying, number one, we have to restore the place of God in our community and in our homes through prayer and a daily walk with God. Two is to be able to build a village of believers and a family of us coming together, discussing these questions, beginning to ask ourselves, where are we going? And how do we approach this issue? Because there are things that you cannot do as an individual. it will require a whole entire village, the way we have done these seminars today. It is these opportunities here that bring us together to be able to say, Jamani, something is going on. And I cannot do it by myself. I need another elder to stand by me. Because one of the things most of the time is that unashtuka, unagadhabika. By the time you go to this boy or this girl, you're going to make things worse, because you're not yourself by that time. Tunaelewana? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Open your eyes. Daddy, I know what is under my feet, but that does not define who I am. Then now we say, so if that doesn't define, what else defines you? But if you have somebody else ambaye mnaweza kuongea pamoja naye, mukasali pamoja, mukaomba pamoja, mukatafuta elimu, you read, you study from the spirit of prophecy, from all these things, then you can be able to go back and not only love them, but begin to work to help them open their eyes in a way that they can be able to understand. Because sometimes it is not what they are telling you, but it is what is going on with them. It may be feelings of rejection that they are dealing with. It may be depression going on. It may be anxiety going on. It may be so many things that is going on. So if they are dealing with all these things, kwa mfano, inaanza anakuja, ameanza kuvaa vingine, anataka nivae hivi. The question is not that dress, but the question is what is going on and why now? Tunaelewana? Why now? What else is going on? You have to dig further to know what else is going on. What started this? What is happening? Then as we begin to address those issues, then now we can come back to this later. And secondly, if we talk about this dress, for example, so what else is going on? What does it mean if we accept this? How else can this be understood? Because for you, this is what it means to you. But is it possible that this may mean something else to somebody else? And you begin to get some attention that is unwanted, and you begin to wonder why, because what you think is authentic to you may mean something else. When you begin to sag your pants, you may be doing that, or you change your hair or whatever, you may be trying to figure out that which is quote unquote ours. But does it mean something else to somebody else? If you go with that hairstyle or hairdo, for example, you go on the highway and something is happening and there is a suspect, you may end up the first suspect, because it may mean something else to somebody else. So, have we talked about that? So as you begin to deal with this is why a foundation, a community, a people can help you to be able to approach it in a way that you're not overreacting, but acting, not reacting. We also talked about the relationship. Not only the relationship between you and your child, but the relationship between you and your wife. Because sometimes it does require both of you to have a solid foundation. If there is already tension between the two of you, then this issue will break you up. And you may be trying to be able to stand up katika maadili ambaye tumelelewa nayo na ambaye katika Biblia, but if one of you does not see the way the other one is like, you know what, this is not a big issue. I mean, we have more issues. That the moment the child sees that your wife or your husband looks at it differently, they will get in between you and you will butt heads. And that is how they will succeed. The enemy will succeed. So relationship. Secondly, the relationship with that child. What is going on between you and that child? How much of a relationship have you built? Kuanzia unapowalea. But now with the kind of schedules we have in this country, because it may be the only thing that will be able to hold that child from going over the precipice is the relationship you have. They reach a point where they feel like, I don't agree with dad in everything, but I don't want to disappoint them. I'm sometimes angry and frustrated, but there is something that will bring them back. That will feel like no matter what my friends are doing and what I wish to be able to do, there is something that will hold them from going overboard. Is that relationship that they have with you, but also that they have with God. So there are specific things that we will address as we move on. But these are the foundations I'm building. That relationship with God, the relationship with the entire community, the village where we can be able to build to help each other. But there are specific questions that we will need to be able to ask, and specific things that we need to be able to address. So I'm generally answering it that way, but as we move on, we will go into more details. Does that help for now? Okay. Okay.
Maro, maybe you may want to consider.
Okay.
Maybe to, yeah. So in this dilemma of trying to adjust and all the things that we talked about, which is perfect for everyone, there's also another dimension, I think, that, as you said, women seem to adapt faster than men. And we are wired differently. So as men, we are wired in a such way that, first of all, you know, our orientation, you want to be a man. And if I say you want to be a man, men understand what that means. You want to be a man. And now the territory is not enough. There's no territory to be a man. And you want to maintain that territory to be a man. But even as we develop those relationships, there's also some agenda remains only in the minds of men. They want to fight for their legacy, they want to fight for significance. Kuna kutana project nyingi kichwani ambazo zingine they just go to our mind. And nobody else knows them. Because we are wired that way. We want to succeed, but the environment may not be as conducive as we would want to succeed. And we probably don't communicate very well our dreams and our vision for the rest of the families. And I think we suffer more sometimes because of that. Our circles of friends is very limited. Sisi unaweza ukahold. You are happy, unaweza ukahold. You not happy, unaweza ukahold. Wenzetu, if you are not available, they find somebody to tell their happiness or their struggles, and they will be fine. Sisi wanaume tunakufa kiume. Mnajua imani yangu, eh? And sometimes we think that what is happening in our family is unique, but we are learning that it's not unique. How? And so sometimes we punish ourselves so much because we think our situation is so bad compared to others. Maybe as you continue, how can we do better as men? Because I believe that if we do better as men in terms of adjusting, the family also will do better.
Ndiyo maana ni vizuri hata katika mikutano kama hii tuchukue nafasi ya kuweza kuzungumza as men and as women, and then we talk together again and see what is coming on from this, whether we can be able to translate these languages, you know, because actually you're wired differently. You remember a friend of mine used to say this, that you know, when you're dating and courting, you know, things are great. This woman gets all these nice flowers and she's like, man, I can't wait. Because according to him, agenda number 1 is to get a wife. So flowers and everything else is for agenda number what? 1. Akimaliza anasema tick. Agenda number 2 ni kwenda kuwa ndofu na kuleta minofu ya nyama nyumbani. Na ile, what about the flowers? Refer to agenda number 1. Hiyo iliisha. I'm working on agenda number 1. Number 2. Tunaelewana lakini? Question.
Kuna mzee fulani amekaa Marekani muda mrefu. Tukua tunaongea akasema nataka nirudi nyumbani. Nimekaa Marekani vya kutosha. Nikamuuliza swali kwamba kwa hiyo sasa hivi unajijua wewe ni nani? Akanambia Isaac, acha kunisumbua. Kwa sababu hilo swali ni gumu. Sijijui kwamba mimi ni nani kwa muda nimekaa Marekani na muda nimekaa Tanzania. Na huyu ni mzee, which means they're on the time when they want to retire and go home rest. Sasa mimi nikajiuliza kwamba is there a moment for us, mimi Isaac, because it's very hard for me to influence even my children if I don't know who I am. I cannot even be a man, talking like a man, if I don't know who am I as a man here in America. So is there a moment with all the changes, vitu tumejifunza hapo, vitu vizuri sana, ambapo nitajijua kwamba mimi ni nani? Is that such a thing? Or it just matter about adjusting back and forth? Will that ever come a moment so I say, now I am a man and I know who I am?
Unajua, it's a dangerous question, yes. Because this is, as long as breath is left in your nostrils, you'll have to wrestle with that question. Kwa sababu, itafika mahali hapa, hata unasema nao, unaangalia hii nursing home hii hapa, mimi naenda huko kweli? Tunaelewana? Angalia sema hapana, huko mimi siendi. Naenda Tanzania. Fika Tanzania, watoto wamegoma hawaendi. Lakini mke wangu anaenda, si nilimuoa, tunaenda. Haya mnaenda. Fika huko. Miezi 6, simu inapiga. Oh baba. Daktari amesema tumebarikiwa. Tunangojea mtoto lakini kuna complications. Sasa mama anaweza kuja kutusaidia kidogo. Sema okay. Anakuja hapa miezi 3 ya 4. Unasema hapana. Sasa mtoto alizaliwa, alimidiwe Mungu, lakini ilibidi aende nursery, sijui nini. Sasa itahitaji miezi nyingine 1 ama 2, sijui, lakini nitakwambia. In the meantime, pesa zimeisha huko bwana. Unajua ulipofika na ile budget yako ulikuwa umepanga, calculate hapa, it requires about, hapo wamesema it requires like 1.5 million, to live for 15 years in Texas. Sema Tanzania hiyo Simbaya, okay. Lakini hukujua shangazi atakuja, alafu sijui nani atakuja, na mwingine na dunia nzima, hiyo pesa zimeisha. Sasa unaanza kupiga nduru huko, mama mwisho inabidi arudi. Anakaa mwaka 1, ile kijana mliacha naye anasema bwana, mimi bwana naye ametubariki, tuna msichana anakuja. Sijui kama baba unaweza kuja kutusaidia. Sema hapana, wacha mama aje. Then you realize some of the stresses ambayo tumepitia hapa, magonjwa yanaanza kuja, blood pressure inafanya nini? Inaenda juu. Sasa wanakuuliza kila kukicha bwana, na sasa wale watoto mlioacha wapi? Na ule kijana ako wapi? Nasikia kijana anasema ati amegeuka, anataka kuwa msichana, sijui nini. Sasa maswali mengi kutoka kwa village. Mpaka wanasema hapana. Unaanza kuwa mgonjwa, unaenda hospitali huko, naye hospitali huko ni line nyingine, sijui madawa ziliisha, sijui nini. Sasa mwisho wanasema wewe baba, njoo hapa, tumeweka appointment ya daktari. Unakuja hapa, unatibiwa, unapata nafuu. Halafu nasema na sasa ile nyumba tulijenga itakuwaje? Sasa baba, acha hiyo. Daktari anasema lazima ukuje kwanza next month. Unashtukia hapa ulirudi kitambo bila wewe kujua ulirudi lini. Na mama alijua hii mambo zamani. Yeye hakukataa, but you know huyu hatuendi mahali. Sasa umejenga nyumba, umenunua shamba na umerudi ile, lakini hiyo nasi ngombani inakungoja tu. What do we do? So we are reaching a point where we have questions that every single day is asking us, what do we do? So who am I will be a question you have to wrestle with. But for us as men, this is where it will require community. It will require others. Unajua nyumbani ulipokuwa mdogo, unapobalehe, you had elders to guide you through this. You had the community to guide you through this. Lakini sasa shida, unajaribu kuangalia, wanasema mzee, unaangalia, si ni wewe bwana, ni wewe mzee. What are you talking about? Mimi mzee, sasa kuna nani mwingine? So what do you do? So we need at least even a group of men to begin to talk. Sababu hatuna mwingine. So we will have to begin to talk. Because we begin to get mentorship from each other. Wacha niende nilale leo. So at least usiku. Nilikuwa nafikiri mko wako ndiye ameanza kufura. Kumbe. So we are dealing with this together, tunaelewana. So as we begin to talk inasaidia. Kina mama hivyo hivyo. Na pia mtusaidie mahali pengine kwa sababu tunafika mahali ambapo we will begin to learn to relate with ourselves, relate with other people, because we grew up in a community that we were socialized differently. Uliandaliwa kwenda nje kama morani, pambana na wanyama wa porini ambao wanaleta hatari nyumbani, ama kwenda kuleta ng'ombe na nini, but you never learned about relationships, particularly with your own children. But this can be a wonderful privilege of getting to know your children in such a way that you can make an impact in their lives, and you can know your son as you would never know before. But the other thing also is to know that some of the things are unrealistic in this country, because some of the things is what was done by the whole entire community. But you cannot expect one person to supply what it took the whole village to supply. Tunaelewana? Somebody was saying, like, intimacy in Kenya and other places like Tanzania is what you did with others. Kwenda kuleta maji, kuchunga ng'ombe, kufanya, wakati wa mavuno na nini. But here, intimacy is intimacy. I'm not bringing dowry and I'm bringing all this, but I'm bringing my weaknesses and my struggles and my doubts and my all this. That is what intimacy is, intimacy. And now you have to deal with all these issues. So how do we deal with that? How do we realize the transition has happened? Then how do we respond to change that has occurred? Tunaelewana? It's the conversation that has to continue to move on. All right? Yes.
Okay. Yeah. We have been talking about these issues relating to us and our families and where we come from. So I was flying the other day and I had a person, just 2 seats, and my passenger on my side, we started talking. And gut feeling, I sensed something here was a little bit more interesting than I thought. So he picked up his phone. He had 2 phones in his hand. We were just talking, and very wonderful person talking to. Then when he was flashing his phone, there was some colors on the phone, rainbow on the phone. So immediately I sensed something more than this. He went on, it was just a normal conversation. It was a 3-hour flight, and he started expressing and saying who he was. He didn't want to talk to me like if I'm part of it, but he just wanted to make sure I know who he was and if it was okay and all this kind of stuff. And that hit me in a different note. See, it's a different thing when we talk about our families and all this kind of stuff. But as we move around now, these things are becoming more open. How do we deal with that? I came home, I asked my wife, I told her what happened. And, he works in the healthcare industry. And he's helping training some people. That's where he was going, where he was going. We had a wonderful conversation. He talks about his partner and how it was bad to him and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there, and he talks about his grandmother who told him and said, you know what, I love you, but I don't know if you're going to make it to heaven. Then I looked at him and said, so what do you think about that statement? He said, but you see, it's in me. It's in me. And I started thinking, how do I talk to him? I help him? Am I the right person? Is he a right person? I know what he's doing biblical is not right and God does not approve it. How do we deal with that? Before even now we're dealing with our children, now we have the society also coming out as open as it is.
I'll come to you, but I have somebody here. What makes me so sad, especially in this situation? What is so sad for me is that these are the best people in the world. I've worked with 3 supervisors who are gay and lesbian. They are the best supervisors I've had. As people, they are the best people. And the sad thing is, we who are heterosexual sometimes are the worst people to work with. So if there is a gospel that is being preached in this world, their strength is they are living the character of Jesus. Yet on the other hand, disobeying and doing everything against the Lord. Are we together? So their gospel is so effective because it is lived, not professed. Tunaelewana? So what is happening is, why don't I and my wife, through the power of God, live such a wonderful thing that the whole world will say, wow, this is what it means to be a husband and a what? And a wife. Who will want to go do that if they can see the joy we have and the meaning and purpose that having somebody that loves you? If the Bible and Naomi's prayer comes true, that you find rest in the house of your husband and in the house of your wife. If my life is percolating every single day and bubbling with that rest, and as you talk with them, they will tell you the struggle they have in their marriage and all that. But as you begin to talk with them and share what God is doing in your life, they reach a point. I've worked as a counselor. That's what I deal with. One day I was, for a number of years, worked with a lady who had turned into a man. And she's going through the process of counseling and starting also the changing process. I finished the session and I'm going to the men's bathroom and she is there. She's a man. She's a man. So I had to come out and go upstairs to a different bathroom. But as I walk with them, they reach a point where they ask me a question. I'm not sure whether I want to continue with what I am doing. Because a lot of issues come up and they begin to realize the trauma they have dealt with in their life. I wasn't dealing with, other things, but their relationships and other areas that I was helping with. And finally she reached a point where she's saying, I can't believe that I'm doing this because of the trauma I've gone through. Maybe I need to think again. Tunaelewana? So my saddest point is not them, but where we have failed them. Because why are these people able to live? And let me tell you, really, this is not that they are pretending. They are one of the best people in the world. But my question then is, why can't I, by God's grace, be able to live a wonderful life? That person can look at my life and say, I am trying all these things. Yes, I'm hoping that this, because one of the things I was worried about is, so what if you are all this done and you're finally a man, quote unquote, and then you realize you're not even accepted as a man. So what do you do next? But the question is, they deal with those questions. They have to go through so much therapy before and after, and then realize later on that what the promise was, that I'll be okay after that, it's a promise that cannot be delivered. Then they wonder how to go back again. Or realize it may not be possible to go back, or even if they go back, it won't even have the promise, and going on this other side it doesn't have, then it's life sucks, and I don't want anything to do with it. So the question is, why can't I, by God's grace, live a life that this person will see and realize that you have something that I don't have? Can you share with me what it is that gives you hope? So my fear is not so much them, but how we have failed them. And that's why we need to come back to ourselves and talk and begin to ask for revival within our own families, within our own lives. That even though the devil is throwing darts at our marriages and our children and all that, but yet in our own lives, men can see Jesus. That's why Jesus said what? If I be lifted up, what will I do? I'll draw all men, including this group. But I think we have failed him by not lifting him up. Sometimes we are more very vocal about the fact that we are straight and they are not, and we are the meanest people, and they have not seen love that has attracted them. Most of the time, these people are people that were rejected when they were, right from the time they were young. And what they need is somebody that can show them Jesus and convict them in their own lives that what they are doing is not right, but they are trying to get something, but they will not get it there, but they will get it somewhere else. Now, I'm not saying this in order to condone it. No. In fact, I've worked with many that have finally went back. But what helped is knowing the facts, knowing the issues involved, knowing what else is happening that may have driven them to this point. But it's a work that will require a lot of work, a lot of studies, and that is why even as we prepare for our own children and others, we have to be really educated in both the Bible, the spirit of prophecy, and what is going on, because there is a lot of garbage in psychology and sociology and all these other things that unless, one of the things I'm trying to do, that's why I went back to education, was, to be able to design a curriculum that is faithful to the Bible, faithful to psychology and all this science, but also faithful to issues of culture, faithful to the spirit of prophecy, faithful to the controversy theme as the foundation of it. Because when you begin to realize how the cosmic conflict is involved in this, then you will understand why the devil is using this. It is in understanding the cosmic conflict and how it's played by all this. Let me finish with this. There are times we as Adventists have been so obsessed with the mark of the beast and the seal of God and narrowed it to one institution when the devil is using it beyond that. Tunaelewana? Yes, the prophecy is showing us the times and what is happening. But is it possible also that in my own life, pride and arrogance and pain and all that can be a sign of what the beast does? Tunaelewana? Tunaelewana? So what is happening is that the devil has made sure that even those who may keep the Sabbath, if our lives are not reflecting Christ, and if I keep the Sabbath and go home, but my home is a terror to my children and to my wife, I am playing the role of the beast at that point. For the same spirit that changed the Sabbath is being manifest in my house to the point that my son or my daughter says, I don't want anything to do with the pastor, or being a male or female, because of what I have lived hell here on earth, until we go to Sabbath and we say praise the Lord. But for all intents and purposes, we can keep the day, but we not reflect the rest that is in Christ in the Sabbath. Tunaelewana? So as much as prophecy is showing us all these things, yet the devil has also planted the seed of the mark of the beast and the image of the beast and the beast himself in everything else except the day. Because as little seeds of the same spirit that drove him from heaven in our own lives, while we're keeping the day but not the spirit of the Sabbath. Tunaelewana? So nafikiri wakati wangu umeisha. Some of the questions I think we will have to answer tomorrow. So Mungu atubariki, asante.
Pastor, can you give us a closing prayer, please?
Let us pray. Our Father, our Counselor, thank you for this day and the opportunity to discuss these heavy questions. Father, we want to sit at your feet these few days, that we may be taught of you. Transform our marriages and our families, Lord. May this be indeed a day that we come aside to seek healing. And that at the end of it, Lord, may we be mindful and to thank you for what you have done. Speak to us. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Asante sana Pastor Getich. We have only 7 minutes before the music program. We have only 7 minutes break. 11 o'clock will be music program.